What was your breaking point, where you snapped and went off on a rude butt customer? I used to be a shift supervisor at a pet store. I once had one of the girls come up to the front, crying. Immediately my big sister instincts kicked in and I asked her what's wrong. Turns out there is some jerk back in the dog food section that she was trying to help and he was a total butt to her, arguing with her about something that she was entirely correct about. So I head back there. Donghead is back there throwing around bags of dog food. So I ask if he needs help and he goes off on me about the girl that was just back there and how useless she was. So I listen to him rant and then correct him and tell him he was out of line. He gives me the favorite "haven't you heard the phrase the customer is always right" line. So I give him a flat look and respond with yeah, and in this case he's also a horse's butt. He loses it and yells, saying he wants to speak to the manager. I give a shrug and say I am the manager. If you want you can fill out a customer complaint card on your way out and I will make sure I get it. But you need to leave now. I have managed at so many different retail stores. I am not even fazed by people anymore. I am so glad to be out of the industry. Back when I was managing fast food, every once in a while someone would pull the customer is always right card and I would tell them they were no longer a customer and ban them. Had a woman come into my red themed department store asking about cameras. We aren't trained in every individual camera so we usually just refer to the item cards on display near the device that list the basic specs and features. She wanted to know why one, which seemingly had better specs, was priced lower than another. Best we could give her was UHHIDK, that's just the way it is. The entire time she's berating my teammate who I had been called to assist and starts ripping into me, telling me she should have just gone to PC Richardson's instead of my store. After finally deciding on one I ring her out, where she continues to be about the service and knowledge level. I asked if she wanted a replacement plan, which is standard practice on all electronics purchases. She was like, "Are you kidding me? I've never had a worse experience and there's no way I'm giving you any more money." I smiled and told her, "Well, next time mom, there's always PC Richardson's." She was pissed. "What did you just say to me?" I repeated myself. "Well, I should just go return this right now." "Sure thing. Guest services at the front can definitely help you with that. Just make sure you have your receipt handy." I've done similar. I work in sales customer service over the phone and the following happens shockingly pretty often. Customer will ring in too late to order something and the item's sold out. "Well, I'll just never order with you again." "Okay, I'll just disable your account with us. It'll just take me a moment." No, that's okay. I offered a very minor celebrity in the UK, who was in town to do a pantomime, a store card that we have to offer everyone, and his response was, "I don't need 5 off. I could pay your wages for 10 years from one job." Don't you know who I am? So I decided to lie. Not a clue. I then called my boss, who I knew didn't watch any soaps, on the tannoy and asked him if he knew said celeb. He said sorry, no. Should I? Then I asked the customer behind him, who said no. Mainly she was just getting involved or she genuinely didn't know. I have no idea. But that lady was a legend. Then he said Sam Kane, Brookside, Coronation Street. I finished with nope. Still don't know you. So you sure you don't want to take advantage of the 5 discount? It means you save £3.55. He walked out. My manager complimented me on my store card pitch. It was a good afternoon. This happened about a year ago. I managed a team of about 12 call center employees. Guy calls into my tech support desk, we do B2B software, and absolutely berates one of my interns until she's in tears. My most senior analyst takes the call from the intern, and he rips into her as well, cursing, whole 9 yards. Guy was a real butthole to any of the female staff whenever he'd call in anyway. He was one of our frequent flyers. I was not having a great day, but against my better judgment I took the phone out of her hand and laid into him. Didn't curse, but by the time the call was over he understood in no uncertain terms that I knew he was a real butthole. And yes, I'm the manager, and no, he was not welcome to ever call us again. After firing the customer, I hung up, looked around. Every one of my staff, my boss, boss's boss, and the next team over were peeking above their cube walls and out of offices. Went out for a smoke to get mentally ready for the paperwork I knew I'd be getting for telling a customer off. Came back inside. and nobody said a word. Never heard about it from my bosses. I work at a concert venue where I normally check bags and do security until Warped Tour came around. The food vendors were understaffed, so I was moved to a stand where we never had enough food and I was the only one doing food prep, which I hadn't learned how to properly do. About 2 hours into cutting deals with people who ordered something, I ran out of saying OHH chicken sandwich. Sorry, just ran out. I feel really bad, but I have burgers, can that work? I'll throw in some fries. Someone starts giving me crap. My line is backed up like 15 customers as it had been for an hour now, and this person somehow thinks that I can do anything about my current situation besides leave. I didn't even need to say anything. I looked the bee in the eyes, shut my own for a few seconds, took a deep breath and exhausted hunched over the bar. When I look up at my line of now 20 people, I make eye contact with the guy behind her in line. He turns the girl around and says, we're here to see a concert, get drunk and have fun while this kid is stuck slaving away making food for people all day. How about you leave the freaking kid alone? I'll refund you right now. What did you get? For every one horrible person I deal with, there are at least 5 who keep a smile and make me happy to work there. Then there's that guy who brings a tear to my eye by looking out for me. That guy is freaking amazing. One of my coworkers was feeling under the weather about midway through her shift, so I was asked to move my till over to the register she was on so that she could go home. No biggie. I grab my till, walk over, and quietly tell coworker, hey, I'm here to relieve you so you can go home. Hope you feel better. She finishes up her transaction, pulls her till out, starts gathering her stuff up. Next customer in line starts complaining about how long she's going to have to wait. I put my till into the register. It'll just be a moment. Mom, sign on. Just give me a minute and I'll be with you. And start scanning her stuff. Customer complains about coworker not ringing her up. She should have rung me up. I've been waiting for 10 minutes, a lie, since it had been slow, with multiple registers open. And coworker had taken maybe 2 minutes with her previous customer. Still scanning. I'm very sorry about that, Mom. But coworker was not feeling well, and I was asked to relieve her so she could go home. The customer was not satisfied. Well, why didn't she stay home if she was sick? I don't even look up at that point because I'm just seething. Still scanning her stuff. I respond, maybe she was feeling well at the start of her shift and only started feeling bad after she got here. Or maybe she tried to come in and work through feeling sick because maybe, just maybe, she relies on the money she makes here to have a roof over her head and food in her stomach and can't afford to take a sick day. I finish ringing her up. Your total is $XX. Not another word out of her. She grabbed her stuff and got out. I love this story. This is reality for 99% of the population. Even when you are allotted time off for issues like sick injury, the truth is that you are not by management and or financial situations often, despite the fact above. I have been on yours and your co-worker's position. I know she knew that. Freaking see. I worked retail when I was in college. A customer came to my till and one of the products he had was a large version of a chocolate bar. I scanned it and he started giving me crap because the price was wrong. I knew the price wasn't wrong because I enjoy this particular chocolate and bought it all the time. He walked me down to the shelf where it was and pointed out the price tag. I told him that's the wrong price tag. It was for regular size, not large. He asked me, are you freaking blind? I responded with yes, actually, I'm blind in one eye, but I can still see that this price tag is for a regular size bar, and not large. Look at the small letters under the price. He immediately turned nice and bought me a chocolate bar, but screw retail, never doing that again. Worked in a high-end hippie store. Lady came in with her dog despite the mall's no dogs policy. Told her no dogs allowed, but she insisted she knew someone at corporate. It's balls, but whatever. I don't get paid enough to argue. Dog immediately pisses on the floor. She looked over at me with this well look like I was supposed to rush over and wipe it up. Nope. Frick you, lady. I just tossed a roll of paper towels at her and went back to folding. Not technically me, but it's my story. I managed, in person, customer service for a place in a location with a lot of crappy rich people. One day, this middle-aged man with a Mercedes and a big gold Ivy League ring on his hand was yelling at me about something. I don't even remember what. I'm a 5'2" female, I was maybe 20 at the time and this grown butt man is leaned over my desk waving his arms and yelling in my face. A few minutes into his rant he backhands a brochure rack over my side of the counter and it smashes on the floor. All of a sudden, we hear a loud bang. Then a door slam. The customer freezes and my 6'4" assistant manager appears, as if out of nowhere. He gets face to face. Well, as close as he can given that he has 6/8 inches on the angry customer with him and just goes in his deepest angriest voice with his booming Bajan accent, "Do you have a freaking problem?" Before he can finish the sentence the man is out the door, into his Mercedes and down the street. I never had a problem with him again. The assistant manager was in the back room eating lunch, watching this unfold through one of those windows that looks like a mirror from the outside. He usually let me handle my crap because I was the manager. But as soon as the brochure rack was in the air, it was a different story. I worked at a party city in Minnesota. There was one night where I was working the register. It was near the end of the night, tired, still had homework and was in a bad mood. However, I was still polite and friendly. This lady comes in, grabs a few items and comes to the register. She doesn't say anything even when I try to make small talk. She seemed like a snooty woman. She just stared at her phone, pays and leaves. A few minutes later she comes in looking for her phone, clearly frustrated, and I tell her I hasn't seen it and that I was sure she had walked out with it. She walks out and comes back and says I can't find it. She then proceeds to accuse me of stealing it. I had my phone in my pocket and I showed it to her. Told her I had no need for her phone but I will check out for it. She demands I turn out my pockets and she wanted to check behind the register to make sure I hadn't hidden it. The night manager is there at this point and just tells me to do what she says. It gets to the point where they also go through my locker in the back of the store. Mind you, I only had a few minutes before she comes in accusing me, and then going through my car. How the heck did I manage then when I have to walk right next to her to get to it? After proving I isn't of it, he gets angrier and says I must have stolen it because I'm a pathetic loser working retail that can't afford a real phone. Normally I'm a shy, introverted guy that doesn't say much and is polite, but I just tilted into oblivion. Told her she was a stuck-up, entitled C that needed a freaking attitude adjustment, that I had no need for a phone that was better because mine works just fine, and that her phone wouldn't be fit to wipe my butt with. Lame, but I was so angry I couldn't really think. I still had the job the next day. D. I used to work at a Starbucks in an area where NFL owners, professional athletes and the like lived. One of our regulars was some guy who had spent his life wallowing in orange spray tan and had the whitest hair one could imagine. Every day he would come in and order a green tea, literally a tea bag with hot water. No matter what, there was always something wrong with it. Too hot, too cold, cup was weird, whatever. Anyway, one day during my last 2 weeks this guy comes in when we're being slammed. He orders and I call out green tea latte 4x. Notice I did not say green tea. He comes up and snaps, "Excuse me, it was a green tea. It's literally water and a tea bag. How stupid can you be?" I turn toward him, look him dead in the eye and loudly go, "That's not even your freaking order. Every time you come in here it's something else. If we're so stupid then go to another location." He stepped back and didn't say anything after that. Starbucks employee myself. A glory moment for us all is what you had. For every customer that picks up or rudely questions a drink that is very obviously not theirs. My mother owned a dry cleaners and one of her customers flipped out on her because she said we misplaced her clothing. She tried talking to her calmly and explained to her that whatever she dropped off was picked up and paid for. I believe it was one blouse so we didn't lose it. She then went off on her and I basically told the lady to frick off and get the heck out. I never curse in front of my parents, but that lady pee me off yelling at my mom who worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. She then told me to watch myself because she knew people who would get my chink butt. Always nice to top off being a run-of-the-mill butthole with some verbal threats. I wasn't working. I was a customer. It was 28 years ago. I was at a fast food place. I think it was a Popeyes, in a mall food court, and my family was seated at a nearby table. I watched the customer in front of me throw an unreasonable tantrum at the cashier to try to get a freebie. Then when the cashier didn't budge she demanded the manager. All the while I'm standing there waiting for her tantrum to be over so I can order. The manager listened to her lie about the cashier and started to offer her the desired freebie. I was sick of her balls and sick of waiting, so I spoke up and told the manager everything that had happened. Told him the woman was a liar and the cashier had been exemplary, and that if he gave the woman anything or punished the cashier in any way I would take my business elsewhere. $B threw a tantrum at me and stomped off without her food. $boss tried to comp me a meal, but I insisted on paying because I hadn't done anything special. I had merely gotten pee off she was wasting my time and told the truth. Cashier gave me $BS food free, in addition to what I ordered, since it had already been made, packaged and would go to waste, and was very friendly to me every time she saw me afterward. My family wanted to know what had taken so long and why I got so much food. $B, $boss, $cashier. I didn't know we were commenting in PHP today. Before university I worked at this awesome pizza bar as a waiter. I had this really scummy family walk into the place and demand a table. Being the upstanding citizen I organized a makeshift table to decrease their waiting time. The father ordered a double brandy and coke, so I went and put in the order. Now just to clarify, this place would get ridiculously busy. Sometimes an order from the bar would take 10-15 minutes. Suddenly after 2 minutes the man storms in and is like, "Where the heck is my drink?" I kindly respond by stating that I will bring it as soon as possible. However, the bar is backlogged. He responds, "Don't you talk back to me, boy, and don't even think about getting a tip." The evening carries on and I bring him his drink. He then proceeds to order a pizza, one of the most expensive pizzas at that. However, he requests no olives, no cheese, no onion, no pepper, basically just a pizza base, tomato paste and the meat. The bill comes and I am immediately summoned back to the table. "Why is this pizza so expensive?" he questioned. "Because that's what you ordered," I replied. "But I didn't have 90% of the toppings," he screamed at me. "That does not change the price," I smirked. "I refuse to pay this," he argues. I walk back into the store, find my manager and tell him the story. I then proceed to package the cheese, onions and all other toppings into tiny plastic containers, slam it down on the table in front of the man and say, "There, you now have all your ingredients. Now pay the freaking bill and get out of here." They pay the bill and get escorted out of the joint by the manager. Honestly, waitering was fun, other than guys like that. I worked at a big name office supply store for 2 years and dealt with all kinds of bulls. I don't take well to customers treating low-wage people like crap. A few summers ago, I had come home after working at that office supply store and decided I wanted ice cream. Low wage or not, I had worked a few extra hours and decided to invite the single mom neighbor and her kids to come for ice cream, since I knew she was struggling too. It was the beginning of summer and there was a line 20 people long, but no deal, you wait your turn. There was a woman a few people ahead of me who spotted one of the employees on their break, leaning out an extra window and talking to a friend who had dropped by. This woman decided to lean out of the line and scream up to the windows, "We're out here waiting and she's just chatting with her friends instead of doing her job, etc." I lost my temper, leaned out and said, "Mom, please, what's the problem here? You're waiting for ice cream, not the cure for cancer. Anyone who works hard is entitled to a break, and especially when low-wage employees deal with buttholes like you, they need it." The entire line started chuckling and looking at her. She turned beet red and went silent. I hope she felt more embarrassed than she ever had, because seriously, it's freaking ice cream. Don't be a bee. Thanks for standing up to bullies. I do the same now when I'm in civilian mode. I will call you out and take a crap on you if you act like a bee to service industry people. I'm a bank teller, and a customer I had never seen before flipped out when I asked him for his license. He was cashing a check for over $700. Obviously I'm going to properly at him. He grumbles about how he's never heard of a bank asking for identification. I tell him we do it to protect his money, but he raises his voice and says you people are only looking out for yourselves, which isn't entirely wrong. Yeah, it'd be bad for business if we were giving strangers people's money, but still, it's protecting their money in the first place. He's basically yelling at me for following our company procedure. I explained that if anyone came in with the check, they could cash it if we didn't ask for it. He lets out this nasty huff and says, "How do I know you're who you say you are?" Now, I had no idea what to say. Here I am with a name tag with the company name, sitting behind the teller line next to other tellers. So I look around, grab for my purse under the counter and say, "I can show you my license if you don't believe me. I don't know what you want, sir." And his face turned so red. All he said was, "Why does the bank need my ID?" And he didn't talk the rest of the transaction. I did the transaction as slow as possible and counted the money more times than I needed to drag it out. He was so peeved. Honestly, I'd be more concerned if a bank didn't ask for my ID when they're handling my money. I used to be a Chinese food cook. One night the kitchen was closed. I cleaned everything in the kitchen and everything we had in the food warmer was what was going to last the rest of the night. The store closed in 30 minutes. This lady came up to the counter and ordered kung pao chicken, which was the last thing I made before closing down the kitchen. This woman started bitching about how she didn't want the crap in the warmer because she was convinced it was just sitting there all day. I told her that unfortunately the kitchen was closed and what was in the warmer was all we had, but it was the last thing made before closing the kitchen, which was about 15 minutes prior. She then started to curse me out and was telling me how I was going to get fired because I was being so rude and how she is the customer, which means I have to do what she says. So I looked at her, said fine, turned around, walked into the kitchen and cooked her a new batch of kung pao chicken, and I took the entire container of dried peppers and dumped it in the wok with the chicken. It was so strong I couldn't breathe when cooking it. I dumped it into the quart box and half the box was dried pepper flakes. Walked out, gave it to her, rang her up, told her to have a good night. I hope she went home and was furious about it. After a year and a half of taking complaints for tech support, I had a customer that couldn't restart his computer because the watch battery in it was dead and every restart required a long period of entering in dates. DOS-based machine. This guy would not accept the standard answer and was expecting me to help him with his uninstall, reinstall and build a script to input dates automatically or something. I dealt with the guy for over 2 hours of constant rudeness and badgering while we took a lot of extra time fixing his problem. He was almost appreciative. Then I get to the point where I add, "And these changes will take effect when you do a complete restart." I talked over him for the first few seconds, telling him to wait 30 seconds before restarting. I didn't let him finish. I just kept saying that and interrupting him. I let him start to cuss me out for a second, but I had had enough. I told him to frick off and threw the headset. Work fast food. Customer returned fries because they wanted salt free, so I put down another batch, waited, took them up, and brought them to the customer, salt free. 2 minutes later they come back and flip major crap, saying they are still too salty. I didn't lose my crap, but my manager behind the counter didn't take too kindly and kicked him out of the store. Felt good. Sounds like they were the ones who were salty. This pompous butt came into my restaurant one afternoon with his wife, and one of my favorite co-workers ended up getting him as a table. Right off the bat he started snapping his fingers at people to get their attention, cutting them off only to not say a word, having every type of passive-aggressive negative comment about the restaurant, ranging from the seats to the table to the drinks and so on. I wound up having to run his food to him, and when I got there, he was in the middle of scolding my friend on why our food was prepared a certain way. WTF. It's a Cajun restaurant owned by a dude from New Orleans. It's gonna be on the weird side. So I go to set his food down once he stops talking. I hadn't even finished setting it down when he goes, "Where are the crackers?" To which I reveal my other hand, carrying as many packages as I could hold. But I smile for my friend's sake and say, "Oh, they're right here. Don't worry, I made sure to bring you extra." I then set his wife's food down, and again, before I'd even finished, he goes, "Where are her sides?" Which I say, "They're right here on the tray," grabbing them from the tray and setting them down. By this point I'm fairly irked, but genius here didn't seem to realize it, and he snaps at me and says, "Spoon," while shaking his head like you would at a child. I had been sure to prepare this guy's food perfectly before I brought it out, so he would have no reason to send me back for anything, and I remembered his goddamn spoon. Smiling, I looked down at his plate and picked up the spoon resting in front of his stupid face and said, "Oh, well, here it is." How about that? My coworker got a kick out of that one. Even the guy's wife was smirking a little. She was with him just for the money. A telemarketer called me at IT and insisted to talk to my client services manager to send us an information packet on flash storage. I told him we are not interested. He then said, "Sir, seeing as you are not the client services manager, you are not authorized to make decisions." Yeah, I went off on him a bit. It was an Amish guy that brought out a combination of Julia Sugarbika and the evil queen from Snow White in me. Years ago I managed a supermarket in a very small town. A group of Amish people had recently purchased several farms and set up a community in the area. While I'm sure that most Amish people are good, honest folks, many members of this community weren't. By the time of what became known as the incident, several Amish people had already been banned from every bar, restaurant, and several retail establishments for fighting, shoplifting, and general bad behavior. Word gets around, so my employees were keeping an eye on them in the store. The day before, one of my cashiers had caught a young Amish woman shoplifting a roll, 10 cans of skull chewing tobacco and called me up front. She had watched her hide them in her clothing. When she checked out, before giving her the total, the cashier asked her politely if she was going to pay for the skull. The Amish woman did give the tobacco back to the cashier, saying she forgot she had it, paid for the rest of her purchases and left. The next day an older Amish man came in asking for the manager. The girl up front called me to the front of the store. He then told me he wanted to speak to the manager. I told him I was the manager and asked how I could help. He then asked to speak to the real manager. I knew where this was going, both because I'm female and the near miss shoplifting from the day before. I let him know I was all he was going to get manager wise. He went on to try to explain to me, in a very slow, disappointed that I was obviously too stupid to understand manner, that he wouldn't tolerate his people being watched in my store. I explained, in my very calm yet intensify cold killer now with sheer force all I world manner, that I would not tolerate shoplifting in my store. I told him I had witnessed the exchange and everything was done in accordance to store policy that I established. He then said something like, "I would expect this from a store full of women." I really don't remember what happened next, but according to more than one employee, I got 6 inches taller, my voice became very low and quiet, and I backed the guy out the door while banning him and all his ilk from my store forevermore. I had gone Old Testament. A few weeks later, a few older Amish people, both men and women in the delegation, showed up, told me they had come to the community to see that things went better because at this point nobody in town would do business with them. I lifted the ban, and they were good to their word, and there were no problems after that. When I worked at a CVS a couple of years ago, I had a husband and wife come in right as I opened up. They were usuals at my store and they were a pain every time. So I braced myself for the fight I'd have to put up, just to cave to what they wanted. Anyway, as I'm the only one in the store, I make sure to inform them that the coupon they plan to use can't be on sale items. The husband takes offense to this, saying that he knows how to use a coupon and can read and I should mind my own business. It's too early for this crap, but I just take it in stride and go back up to the register where my Red Bull is waiting for me. I down the Red Bull and those two are ready to check out. I'm silent as I scan his items so I'm not berated for trying to make small talk. Halfway through the transaction I noticed all the items are on sale and inform him. He and the wife get irate, yelling how he was supposed to know that, how it's my fault for not telling him and the coupon should work to make up for my mistake. He even goes as far to try and grab me from over the counter. I grab the baseball bat that I kept next to me for just this occasion. Touch me mother and I promise you they'll be carrying you and your wife out on a stretcher. Get the frick out now before I freaking snap. They took off out of the store and never saw them again. My boss and her boss reviewed the tape after I informed her about what happened and they believe I was justified. I was a legend at the store for what happened and was cathartic as heck. My brother works for a CVS. He had some tubby freaking teens shoplifting booze and crap. He waited confronted them at the front door, made them empty their crap and told them if they tried to run he'd chase them down until they collapsed. He's a seasoned marathon runner. I'm a casino dealer and we have to deal with crappy people every day, but there's one that truly stands out. In the rules of blackjack, as soon as the cards are out you are not allowed to change your bets. Everyone knows this. So this one guy decides to try and add $10 to his bet way after the cards are out, and I catch it and remove it, giving him the benefit of the doubt that maybe he did it without thinking and just made a mistake. He immediately grabs it and sticks it right back on the bet. I remove it again and say you can't add to a bet after the cards are dealt. He knows this. He says I can do it, it's fine, just deal the freaking cards. I say no, I can't allow late bets like that, it's never allowed, I could get fired for that. His response is frick you ask your pit boss, I know they'll let me. Pit boss comes over and repeats everything I've just said. She says that's against the rules and you know it and walks away. I go to keep dealing. It turns out I have a blackjack, which means everyone on the table loses. I lock up all the losing chips and he says color me up you freaking retard. You got a lot to learn about customer service, and shoves his chips towards me. I snap a little. I literally did my job properly. Prevented this guy from cheating. Saved him $10 by not letting him cheat. And I'm a freaking retard who needs to learn about customer service. The pit boss comes back over as we argue about this and talks to him, saying he needs to calm down because no one but him has done anything wrong. He does and decides to resume playing instead. It's a little tense. But now he's losing a bit more and I'm completely unsympathetic. About 10 minutes go by and he again calls me a freaking retard for not allowing him to do what he wants. I respond with we've been polite up to this point, but now I'm mad. The other players are mad. And my pit boss is mad. Tone it down or leave. He says your pit boss is mad because she's just a freaking dumb woman. He tries to play another hand and I skip right over him. He demands I color him up because he will never play here again, blah blah blah, the same crap every P-off player says, and I smack his chips back at him and say no. Take the chips and get the frick off my table. He flips me off and storms off saying he's going to report me to my supervisor and get me fired and all that crap. Of course it had me worried. I received no reprimand and he has been barred from the premises. Good, my bosses are former dealers and fully understand the crap we go through. Well, I wasn't the one working, but one time went into a corner bakery and I was waiting in line trying to decide what to eat. As I was about to go up to order, I live in the south by the way, your typically former southern debutant toffee wife, who is no longer happy in life and had gained a bunch of weight, storms up to the counter red with anger. She starts yelling at the ladies at the counter, one older sweet black lady, and I think a 16-year-old who was trying to hold a job. She freaking loses it, saying how she ordered extra chicken with her salad because she's on a special diet and she needs the extra protein. The lady at the register politely goes, oh no problem mom, we'll get you more chicken right away, with the sweetest smile. Lady wasn't having it. Lady freaking snaps again and goes, well you should have gotten it right the first time. You two are so pathetic. You both work here and can't even get this right. Then 16-year-old slowly begins to break down crying and the older lady looks like she's about to follow suit. She continues to go on to say how they won't amount to anything in life and are basically useless. At this point I'm fuming because I hate seeing people abused, especially when they were so kind and eager to fix the mistake. After about 30 more seconds of me trying to stay calm, she says you two deserve to be fired. I can't believe he either would hire people so incompetent. I want to speak to a manager. I am on a strict special diet and you've ruined it. My diet requires extra protein. If you can't accommodate me on that, then you deserve to be let. And I finally freaking snap with, are you on a B diet too, because that doesn't seem to be working either. Went on to say if she lose the stick up her butt maybe she'd lose a few pounds, and while she was at it possibly gain some class. Her jaw freaking dropped and she let out the most pretentious scoff I have ever heard and said how she's never been SOO disrespected in her life. Storms off saying how she deserves to be treated with dignity and attempts to slam the door. Meanwhile the two at the register are trying so hard not to laugh at this point. They thanked me and offered to give me a free drink, haha, which was so sweet. I refused and gave them an extra big tip. Also spoke to the manager to make sure if the lady writes a review online the two girls don't get fired. I work part-time at a very well-known fast food restaurant, and I train new employees. I have lots of rude customer stories, but one really sticks out. It happened when I was training a very nice Muslim girl wearing a hijab at the register. This is important. She was doing fine until this man, while giving her his order, was trying to give her a card, a booklet, I don't remember, with Bible verses on it to put her on the right path. while being extremely condescending, and the girl was extremely uncomfortable and didn't knew what to do. As soon as I noticed, I approached the man, took the card off his extended hand and ripped it in front on him and tossed it in the garbage, and I said something along the lines of "This is extremely disrespectful, and you don't have any say in how she or anyone lives their life. I believe this transaction is over. Now, will you pay cash or debit?" The man paid his order and never came back to the restaurant, even though he was a regular customer. Good riddance. The girl still works there and we are now good friends. As someone that is not religious, I respect everyone's right to believe or not in whatever god they choose, and I will not stand for intolerance. If you pee me off, I'd pack everything in one paper bag and pray to the grocery gods the handles would break. So glad my retail days are over. Turned me into a miserable C. I used to work at an auto body shop doing detailing on cars. One day a lady picked her car up at the very end of the day after every other person had left, so it was just me and the receptionist. Sadly her car had died, so I went to get the booster and she was pissed about this because he recommended her a new battery because the car kept dying. I was fairly new and she had an Audi or something, so of course the battery is tucked away without obvious posts to jump off, so I was taking my time somewhat to make sure I did it correctly and didn't fry the thousands of electronic equipment if I fricked it up. This pissed her off even more and she started going off on me. I took it for a second or two and she said, "Do you even freaking work here?" which just made my blood boil. So I unhooked the terminals from the booster and left that bee sitting in the parking lot with her dead car. It felt so good to drive away while she was sitting there watching me. I guess she called a friend or something because we never heard from her again. My boss never gave me crap for it, just asked me to not do that again. The shop was in a wealthy area, so we dealt with so many arrogant buttholes. I'm so glad I don't deal with customers anymore. Gonna get buried, but I've got two. Owned managed a Little Caesars pizza joint for a bit. One night some guy comes in and tells my counter girl we screwed up his food last time, so this time it's free. My cashier perfectly explains the return we made a mistake policy and asks the guy's name since we have a book we write them in. The guy starts losing it and yelling at my 16-17-year-old employee. I calmly walk over to her, ask her to go in the back and call this guy out for swearing at a young girl. How he is a piece of crap. You have no respect. Get the frick out and don't ever come back. The random customer in the lobby gave me a high five. Second story, I was actually the customer at a Little Caesars. It's probably 5 to close. I roll in and ask for a hot and ready since I'm headed to a friend's house and I don't wanna show up empty handed. Tells me it will be about a minute since it's still in the oven and they have to cut it. My first thought was sweet fresh pizza. After I pay and move to the side, a lady walks in and asks for 2 pizzas. The kid behind the counter tells her it will be about 3 minutes. At this point the lady starts losing her crap. This is bull crap. It should be hot and ready. I should not have to wait. The kid behind the counter is still in high school and trying to do his best, so I step in. I slam my hand on the counter and say, "Lady, and you freaking kidding me right now?" I said, "What gives you the right to talk to someone like that? Over 3 minutes. Everywhere you go you have to wait to at least pay. How important are you that you can't wait for 3 minutes for hot right out of the oven pizzas?" She was silent. As I looked up, the kid in the back gave me a few fist pumps. When the first 2 pizzas came out, I offered her mine so she could get back to her important life faster. She declined and said that she can wait. The next time I stopped in, it was the same 2 guys. Gave me my pizza and said, "This one is on us." After that they would always hook my up with crazy bread. I read your comment. You're an awesome person for doing that. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.